Hello and welcome back to my channel, or welcome to my channel in the first place. Today we have Bakugou ex-listener. It Saw You in a Dream, chapter 6 through 9 by Fiction Please on AO3. The link will be in the description, as well as the link to the first video of this series. There are going to be a couple more after this one, and let's go ahead and get into it. You woke on Thursday, an easy smile coming to your lips. Despite this week feeling long like a drag, it was almost the weekend. Successfully avoiding your mom after school, you closed your room door. Not that it was hard, spending most of her time cooped up in her office. You went to sleep that night, prepared to see the mysterious guy of your dreams. Literally. When you felt the sensation of falling, just like every night, you let your body be surrounded by it. Opening your eyes, you saw that it was once again night, but the scenery took on a different atmospheric vibe than before. The lightness in the air was gone, replaced by a thick weight of humidity, a soul-sharp edge of coldness cutting through. There was even some fog covering the lush green grass beneath you. Whereas before the tree branches were filled with colorful chirping birds, tonight there was a single owl, perched on a thick leafless branch. It gave a low hoot and flew away, its flapping wings echoing through the otherwise silent forest. Doing a full 180 turn, you further confirmed that things were different. You realized there was an added heaviness on your back that wasn't there before. Reaching your arm around, your hand wrapped around a handle. The sound of smooth metal against leather came as you pulled a long blade from its sheath. A sword. You were holding a sword in this spooky-looking forest. Alone, not for long it seemed. Katsuki appeared next to you, sword also cast upon his backside. Catching a shot of his outfit, you laughed. He looked like he just stepped out of a storybook, one where he wasn't the prince. His chest was slightly exposed, a ripped thick garment in place of a shirt. A cape of sorts was halfway on his shoulders, fur tuft at the ends. Finishing the look off with a pair of patched-together pants and thick boots. He quirked an eyebrow at hearing your snicker. His gaze went from your eyes to everything surrounding you. Where the heck are we? He did the same turn you did earlier, not realizing or simply not caring about his own heavy blade. You shrugged. How should I know? I just got here. He reached around and pulled the sword out. Nice. He gave an evil grin. You rolled your eyes. We should probably find some way out of here. I think we're in the middle of the forest. Was this obvious? Yes. Did you still suggest it? Yes. It was the forest that remained the backdrop for every one of your encounters, until now. He slid the metal back into place and gave you a once-over. Good idea. Oh, you didn't have to switch up your look just for me. I didn't mind the old one. You frowned, confused. Glancing down, it clicked into place. He wasn't the only one with a new outfit. A loose-fit tunic sat on your torso, along with tighter pants that looked similar to his. Like your one to talk. You gave him a pointed glare. He tossed his cape back. Come on, let's not deny how sick I look. It looks like you're playing the villain in a high school play. He grumbled under his breath and started walking away. You jogged to catch up, not really wanting to be left alone in this unusually quiet piece of woods. You both walked around for a while, the sounds of dry leaves under your boots. I guess it makes sense if you think about it. What? He kept trudging on, ear catching your words. This situation we're in, at the end of the day, this is supposed to be our dreams, so the possibilities are really endless. He hummed, agreeing. His steps stopped. You ran into his back, having been following him close behind. Katsuki, what? Going to lean around him, you froze. There were a dozen pairs of slit golden eyes blinking back at the both of you. They peeked out from behind wide tree stumps and through sparse spots in the bush. He reached for your hand and took a slow step back, nudging you to do the same. Holding your breath, you made it 5 steps back, Before one of the golden-eyed creatures lurched out of hiding, Katsuki turned and shot off running, contemplating how upset you'd be if he just threw you over his shoulder, not wanting to have to drag you behind him. Turns out he didn't need to bother worrying. You kept your pace beside him, despite your lack of athletic ability. Weaving in between the wide-rimmed trees, the sound of chittering behind kept you from even thinking about slowing down. It had been a solid couple minutes of running, somehow not being able to shake the creatures off your heels. The brush didn't seem to be getting thinner either. There had to be an exit eventually, right? There. His voice came out gruff, gasping for air. He had changed directions, heading for whatever caught his eye. You saw it. A faint glow of light, the smell of smoke, a window, a cabin. Getting closer and closer, the details filled themselves in. The door was rounded, a smooth, carved wooden cloud for the handle. He threw it open and launched his weight on it once inside. You leaned over, catching your breath. The door rattled against him, but soon thereafter fell still. For safe measure, you handed him a chair to put under the handle, blocking any unwanted visitors. He sighed and looked around the room. There was a small fire and a pitcher of water on a makeshift wooden table. You took a seat on the chair and poured water into the mug set beside the pitcher. After offering Katsuki one, you greedily drank your mug. That was crazy. You looked out a window set into the wall, thick glass protecting you from whatever lay in the dark. Insane. I almost want to go back out there to blast those bastards for not leaving us alone. Please do not do that. He winked. I said almost, didn't I? A flush threatened to appear, but you willed it away. He still looked great, not at all like he was just sprinting through a muggy forest. You stifled, realizing you probably weren't so lucky. Looking around, you saw a mirror against the far wall. Was that there before? Now that you thought about it, you couldn't recall the picture being there when you first barged in. Weird. Walking up to it, you saw there was surprisingly no toll on your appearance. Catching Katsuki's eyes on the reflection, he smiled. Hey, we have matching earrings. His fingers trailed to his ears. He looked back at the mirror and found he was right. The same red claw-like earrings were featured on both your ears. You pulled them off pretty well. It was the truth. He laughed. I think red's more your color than mine. Your eyebrows raised. Oh yeah. He stilled, realizing the unintentional compliment he let out. Yeah. A step up from a whisper. The internal alarm clock in you was ticking. You could feel the switch in the air, the far-off wisps. Time was running out. Crap, I think it's happening. He looked around and nodded. This was fun, Katsuki. I'm glad we didn't die. You gave a nervous laugh. Have a good day. It felt silly in your mouth. A piece of normal conversation in such an abnormal state. He grinned. Till next time, listener. You woke up in bed. A bed you don't remember falling asleep in. The mattress felt like a sack of feathers, the same going for the pillow under your head. You sat up, the rough blanket draped over you, following the abrupt movements. Someone's equally rough breathing caught your attention. Looking over, it was a sleeping Katsuki, right beside where you just were. The sleep fog was wearing off. You realized you were still in the cabin from last night. The pitcher of water on the wobbly table, the 2 mugs set in place, your bright red earrings still on. You took in a shaky, deep breath. Hearing about this happening to other people online was quite different when it was actually you. They said it was a variation of lucid dreaming. No one really knew the boundaries, always having woke up left with soul fragments of the night. But supposedly, from the little information you've gleaned, when the body was under high stress, your brain went into a state of self-preservation, Clearly, the brain didn't have much trust in whoever it sent under. Luckily, though, time worked differently here. Hours passed faster than when truly awake. Only thing was, you felt fine. No more stress than usual. So, you glanced over at Katsuki again. He didn't seem aware of the switch either, at least not yet. Taking inventory of the one-roomed cabin, you noticed there was now a gas oven and cabinets. That was for sure not there last night. Curiosity won, and you walked over, opening them, eyes widening at the full stock of food, vegetables, fruits, tons of different herbs. In the next one over, you found meat, chicken, steak, pork, steaming ready to eat, despite coming from a cupboard. The ruffle of sheets had you turning around. Katsuki yawned, stretching. You waited. It finally sunk in. What? He did the same scan of the room you did, eyes stopping when he saw you, standing in front of the cabinets with loads of cooked food. Hey, good morning. Well, at least it looks like we won't be going hungry anytime soon. You looked at the floor, voice trailing off by the end of the sentence. Why, how? He flailed his arms around. You put your hands up defensively. I have no idea either. You did kind of have an idea, but thought he wouldn't want to talk about any of his big troubles, seeing as he just woke up. He groaned and flopped back onto the bed. Your stomach grumbled. He looked over, lips twitching in a smile. Someone hungry? He put his hands under his head, being able to fully shoot you a smirk. You crossed your arms. Not my fault, I'm a breakfast advocate. Actually, I don't even know what time it is. There was light coming in from the windows, but who knows how long you were laying there. You also had to pee. He probably didn't need to know that part. He tried to rub the sleep out of his eyes, replying in a still scratchy morning voice. I can make something. Since we apparently have everything I'd need. He took another confused glance at the compartments behind you. Yeah. Freezing at the sound of scratching on the wooden door, you met eyes with Katsuki. He shook his head. You nodded and tried not to think about how sturdy that piece of wood was. Hey, was that door there before? He pointed to the right of you. You turned and saw it, walking slowly up to the handle. It was, in fact, not there before. Should I open it? You did your best not to let the fear come through your voice. Sure, unless you needed big ol' strong me to do it for you. You rolled your eyes and turned it with more force than necessary. It was a bathroom, a full mirror and countered sink with a toilet next to it and a tub next to that. Taking a step back, you bumped into his sort of bare chest. His hands fell on your shoulders. Oh, you whirled around and whacked him on the arm. You scared the crap out of me, stupid. He ignored your words. You saw his widened eyes and the reflection. Wow, this is really getting freakier by the second. You nodded in agreement, shrugging off his hold. You could feel the beating growing faster. Your heart, your mind couldn't help racing along with it. It was too much. You were going to be stuck in a dream for who knows how long. It's barely been any time at all, and you're already losing it. You needed air. Stumbling to the door, you threw out any previous fear and bolted into the outdoors. The fresh breeze filled your lungs like gulps of fresh water after dying of thirst. You spun, looking for somewhere to soak it in better. A spot under the shade from a canopy of branches looked as good of a place as any. The grass was back, green and vibrant like before. You couldn't tell for sure, but with the sun out and the wind blowing, the idea of those disturbing creatures coming out again just sounded out of place. So, you lay down, watching the leaves gently sway above you. A couple even drifted down, twirling to the ground. Listener! You stiffened at the sound of his frantic voice. You stayed silent, though, And sure enough, he still managed to find you. Your heart had slowed to a normal rate, but you were still doing your best to keep your thoughts on a tight rein. Overthinking and regular thinking was a fine line for you, not one you liked walking on. He didn't ask, just laid closely beside. Your head turned over, his blonde spikes were in stark contrast against the greenery around you. Sorry, I just couldn't breathe. He nodded. I get it. Something soft and furry brushed against your leg. You yelped and sat up. A white and ginger cat strolled by, its tail flicking lazily in the air. You sighed, leaning over to pet it. Hey buddy, were you the one scratching earlier? You added, mumbling, I sure hope so. Katsuki's hand appeared next to yours, fingers giving the cat playful scratches. This time it was his stomach grumbling. You laughed. Ready to actually make breakfast? He huffed exaggeratively. I guess, let's just hope there's enough for you. He laughed at your expression. His true laugh was a hearty thing. Like he gave a piece of himself in each breath. When he caught you staring, he stopped. What's wrong? In his mind, he assumed maybe you weren't feeling so great again. In reality, you were thinking how you could have lived happily so long without hearing his laughter, and what you had to do to hear it again. You coughed, looking away. Nothing, come on. You stood up, leaning an arm out. By the way, hope you know I'm trusting you not to make crappy food. Better not disappoint. Did he need your help getting up? No. Did he miss the feel of your hand in his, though? Yes. You're gonna wish you hadn't said that. He took it, and you hauled him up. He didn't want to let go, so he made it seem like he was dragging you back to the cabin. You were unaware of any of his thoughts, but it's not as if you wanted to let go either. He was right. You offered to help, but he just gave you glare and told you it would be ready soon enough. You hesitated but still turned away. Seeing you motion to the door, he nodded and started pulling out all the ingredients he'd need. The earlier trip to your spot was too rushed for your liking, so you returned this time with a calmer heart. The familiar sound of the nature around had your mind drifting off. Sooner or later, you'd have to talk with him. Really talk. Maybe if he could get whatever was on his chest off, you both could get out of here. Although, you had to admit, it wasn't as bad as it could be. He was literally making a meal for you two while you laid in the sun. Not even bad in the slightest. Except for the slow creeping worry for your mom. When she would get in moods, she would dive into work and get so deep that someone needed to pull her out. Even if it meant you had to swallow whatever dislike you had for her, she was still your mom. She was the one you would bake with, deciding to make 3 different kinds of cookies, not being able to choose just one. She was the one who would binge watch cheesy Netflix dramas with you. She was the one who came into your room at the late hours of the night when she heard you having an intense allergy fit, hands holding medicine, her voice whispering reassuring words. Of course, all this stopped after that day, the day of your dad's accident. Guess that was the saddest part of it all, huh? You never know which goodbye is the last one, until it is. Until they leave and don't come back. Until you do anything to go back to that last goodbye. Hug him longer. But the past stays in the past, and the present keeps moving to the future. Nothing you can do to stop it. Hey daydreamer, food's ready. He leaned out the doorway, hands cupped so his words would reach you. You laughed, quickly trying to wipe the traitorous tears before he saw them. With the smell of whatever he cooked up in the air, you walked faster to the cabin. He had your plates already set up, and you suppressed your grin. These little moments, statements, and gestures were just a constant reminder that he was sweeter than he'd ever admit. It might not have been a big deal for him, or anyone really, but after days of having all 3 meals of the day alone, Someone even setting the table had your heart warm with appreciation. Snap out of it. Hurry up and eat before your stomach yells at you again. He hid a smile and took his seat. The mouth-watering omelet was calling your name. Catching a whiff of his, you looked up. How come yours is spicier than mine? I can practically feel the burn from here. He quirked an eyebrow, elbows on the table, head resting on his fists. Oh, wasn't sure you like spicy stuff. Didn't want you freaking out over it. All you could hear was a challenge. You should know not to underestimate me by now, Katsuki. You enunciated each syllable, remembering his words from the other night. He looked taken aback, face flushed. He laughed, sitting down. Just kidding. I don't mind spicy stuff, but I'd like to keep my taste buds intact. He coughed, picking at his plate. Okay, listener. He mimicked your way of speaking. Next time, I'll definitely remember how you don't like super spicy food. He stuffed a forkful of food into his mouth, keeping your gaze. You didn't reply, instead deciding to take a bite as well. You stilled mid-chew. The flavors in each added ingredient managed to shine through. Each herb, sprinkle of spice, and chop of cuisine, you could feel the bloom with each bite. Katsuki watched your expression with a smile. Softer than usual, but there all the same. You kept eating, not looking up. It's pretty good. Has my listener's seal of approval. You should be proud of yourself. Really, it was an understatement. But did he need to know that? He laughed, replying in a sarcastic tone. I feel so honored. You gave a nervous smile, entirely sure he saw you fall in love with his cooking. You didn't know it, but over the time spent with you, he learned what each of your small mannerisms meant. The twitch of your fingers when you loosened your posture and dropped your shoulders, your pupils dilating at the sight of an endless horizon, even the smile you gave him now. There were just some people who didn't need words, simply able to read the other's emotions through soft touches and the catching of eyes. When you both finished eating, you got up to help clean up, but when you turned back to the table, the plates were gone. Figures. He saw your expression and spoke up. You know why it happened, right? You met his eyes. Was he actually going to spill? A small part of you didn't want to leave so soon. Maybe not so small a part. Yeah, kind of. Do you? He nodded. It's crazy how it works for good, but also bad. He lost you. Wait, huh? You know how the brain makes these subconscious decisions while dreaming? Like those weird-looking bastards we saw last night? Since we assumed something bad would happen, our brains fill the gaps. You stared at him. I've heard of that. I thought it was just a rumor, though. Never confirmed. But the more you thought about it, the more it made sense. How they appeared right when you could feel the fear settle in. How you found a cabin at the perfect moment. The lightning strike when you first felt the sparks between you two. The flower perfect for picking, right where you'd see it. Even the patch of grass you'd found. Exactly when you needed somewhere to breathe. Well, sure looks like it should be confirmed. His voice took on a lower tone. He didn't want to be stuck here either. You nodded somberly. The sun was already setting. You couldn't get used to this weird time zone. There was still light in the day though, and you noticed the fire from last night was slowly but surely going out. It wouldn't last another night without more wood to feed it. It's going to get colder when the sun fully sets. We should probably go get more wood before it's really gone. He was thinking the same thing and agreed. Even though I don't think it's the best decision, let's split up to cover more ground. Come back when you see the first sign of a star in the sky, got it? He said all this while you were standing outside. You gave him a hesitant thumbs up. Walking to the tree line, all you had to do was find some sticks. How hard could it be? You walked deeper and deeper into the brush, eyes searching the ground for loose logs. The sky was getting cloudier by the minute, and you were worried you'd lose track of time. The bark from the wood you'd already collected scratched against your arm. A stick broke behind you. "Katsuki?" you whisper yelled. Slowly turning around, you only saw similar scenery, twisted root trees and bushes full of bright red berries. You tried picking a berry earlier, but when your finger met the outer skin, it burned as if touching a hot coal. Once a second or two had passed, you turned back around, assuming it was all in your head. The dark was really setting in, creeping in the corners of your peripheral. After your arms were full of good enough looking sticks, you changed direction back the way you came. Mist of rain surrounds you, like a thick layer of fog. Then came the sprinkle of water from the sky. Really not wanting to get caught in a storm, you picked up your pace. The crack of a broken stick, again behind you. This time you flipped around faster than before, ready to yell at Katsuki for his annoying attempt at scaring you, mostly because it was working. "Gotcha!" As soon as a retort came out, your words caught in your throat. A creature like the night before was staring straight at you. Its striking golden pupils seared through yours and you froze, silent in fear. You saw movement behind it and realized it didn't come alone. They had enormous eyes and half-folded ears with wide mouths. Their knife-sharp teeth shone in the light peeping through the rain clouds. Taking a deep breath, you began cursing under your breath. Your legs slowly took steps back, not wanting to provoke them into fully attacking you. You lost your balance and tripped up, evidently ruining your attempt of a smooth runaway. They started growling, hind legs bending into a threatening pose. You threw caution to the wind and took off running back to the cabin. You started yelling for your fellow wood gatherer, not sure what he'd even do to help. All you did know was that your boots were getting heavier as the dirt got more and more muddy from the rain, and the chafing those stitched-up pants provided was absolutely horrid. Clearly, they weren't made for sprinting away from snarling animals. Who would have known? "Die!" His voice rang out through the forest, the trees seeming to shrink back in shock. You heard the smooth glide of sharp metal against its casing, and the sudden squelch of flesh. The shrill noises those creatures let out was something that wouldn't be leaving your mind anytime soon. His loud groan of pain reached your ears, in the middle of their shrieks. You found your feet turning back to him, legs moving through the air faster than you thought you could move them. He was on the ground, all the still twitching corpses around him, but you paid little thought to them. He was clutching the front of his body, blood trailing down his arm in colored streaks. You rushed over to his side, and he hissed when you tried to pull away his arm. "We have to get back to the cabin," you whispered, even though there was really no reason. "I did it." His voice came out in a harsh rasp. "I know, Katsuki, but there could be more." You went to the opposite side and hooked your arm in his. Hauling him up, you both limped back to this small bit of light, perfectly guiding you two back to the cabin. When you finally reached the familiar-looking door, you set him in a chair. "Okay, supplies, supplies, supplies," you muttered under your breath, fingertips against your lip. "Just like the damn nerd." He rolled his eyes behind your back. You spun around. He just shook his head. You started going through some of the cabinets, successfully finding a basket full of exactly the stuff you needed. Picking it up, you set it on the table right next to him. "Okay, you're going to have to move your arm back down. Also, what happened?" He begrudgingly removed his arm, and you got to see the full gash on the front of his shoulder, close to his collarbone. "I let one of those idiots in my blind spot, and its claw got a good scratch on me." "This looks a lot worse than a scratch." Your words were a mumble, mind focused on him. He kept his head up, away from the injury. Probably better for his sake, if you were being honest. You leaned down and started washing out the area with a soaked cloth you found in the bathroom. He flinched and you reached out to help still him. Forgetting his chest was fully bare, Your hand went higher than expected at the last second. Suddenly, your hand was on his neck. It would be weirder if you yanked it back, so you just lifted it slightly. He tried to stifle the attack of chills that ran up his body. Each time your skin met his, it was that same feeling of belonging, too good to be true. With you being so close to him, he could feel your steady breaths. The pain that this sickening scratch brought made it hard for him to keep steady, but it helped when he had your hand to imitate. Okay, now I'm gonna bandage it up, try not to move too much. He nodded and you unwrapped them. You started from the top of his shoulder to under his arm, on the side of his back and around. Once it was all bandaged up, you passed him a pair of identical blue pills. He readily took them, water chasing down his throat. You sat in the seat next to him, finally having a chance to process everything that just happened. It could have been a lot worse. He could have really gotten hurt. He was watching as your expression turned more and more grim. You stink. His weak attempt to get you to smile worked. You chuckled, like you're one to talk. He quirked a teasing eyebrow, his body leaning closer to yours. I'm not the one who has sticks in their hair. He laughed when he saw the red on your cheeks. You stood up, looking in the mirror. Sure enough, your hair was full of sticks, pieces of branches, and who knows what else. All the running really did a number on you. Right, well, I'm going to take a shower. You turned on your heel and made way for the bathroom. He kept laughing, outstretching his untouched arm. Come on, you know I was joking. You hid your grin and waved him off behind you. Turning the dial, you stripped while the water warmed. The bath was made of hard clay, the shower head above you, a simple water outlet. It felt more than incredible to wash out the day's grime and dirt. One by one, you picked through the piece of grass and nature in your hair. There was already body wash provided and the smell was new. It was like quiet nights in, staying up with a good book. The fire keeping the heat in and the freeze out. Devoid of all the heavy smoke, a scent of coziness was in place. When you were washed, you stepped out and saw a towel placed on the sink counter. You silently thanked the dream workers and dried off. A new set of clothing was next to it, an exact replica of what you wore earlier. Truthfully, you were getting accustomed to the rougher than usual fabrics and the leather feeling against your torso. Walking out, you tried to step and dry your hair at the same time. Katsuki still sat at the table, this time with a sandwich in front of him. His mouth was full, but he still got a jumble of words out. Got hungry, made you one too. True to his words, there was another full plate beside him. Oh, thanks. He just nodded, stuffing in the last bite of food. Gonna go take a shower. Walking in, he closed the bathroom door behind him. You yawned, the feeling of sleep stronger than your hunger. You started eating anyway, knowing your body needed the sustenance. Your eyes roved over the room. The fire was still going, albeit close to being only embers. The bit of wood you managed to haul back laid by the door. Then you saw the bed, singular, not plural. Sleeping in the same bed was different when you had no say over it. Seeing as how Katsuki didn't talk about what was bothering him, you're prepared for another day of waking up next to him. Alright, so that's the end of this one. I hope you enjoyed. As I said at the beginning, this video was on chapters 6 through 9. There will be a total of 20 chapters, so there should be 2, 3, or 4 more videos left in the series, just depending on how the chapters get split up. So I'm super excited for that, and I hope you guys stick around. Yeah, I'm thinking of releasing a video every Monday for the series, so that's all fun and good. I don't have too much else to say, so I hope you have a great rest of your day and whatever, and I hope to see you in the next one. Goodbye!